This unusual looking camera is the Insta360 X3, and it might be one of the most versatile cameras that you can carry because it is capable of taking a number of unique and creative shots from multiple angles, all in a single shot, something like this. And this is just a taste of what this camera is capable of. And it's quickly becoming one of my go-to cameras, one of my most used cameras. But if you're considering getting the X3, there are a few things you should know about it, a couple of things that a lot of other reviews haven't covered. So here's what you need to know about the X3. Hi everybody, foXnoMad here, and today I want to help you travel smarter with my review of the Insta360 X3. Now, 360 cameras aren't anything new, but the X3 is a big leap up when it comes to the X line, making it much more user-friendly than before. Out of the box, you get the camera, some papers, a USB-C charging cable, and a protective sleeve. Those of you who've seen my previous videos know I always pack my camera in some sort of sleeve, so this is a nice accessory to have, although Insta360 doesn't sell them separately on their site, which is a bit weird, but more on that later. Looking at the camera, what stands out first are these two alien fish eye looking lenses. Up at the top here, you have two lenses that use a 1/2-inch sensor and can shoot up to 5.7K in 30 FPS. Below that, you've got a USB-C charging port, which you can also use to transfer video and photo files to your computer, and the battery compartment, which is also where the micro SD card slot is. Both of those areas are secured with latches that click into place and secure the camera, making it IPX8 rated, keeping it waterproof down to 10 meters or 33 feet without an additional case. By the way, when you get a micro SD card for the Insta360 X3, don't get anything smaller than a 128GB card because the 5.7K video files are big. To give you an idea, the 128GB card can record around 2 hours of footage, whereas a 38GB card will only get you about 30 minutes. Also, I recommend you don't get your micro SD card from Insta360's website, either as an accessory or as a bundle with the X3, because for the price they're selling the 64GB card from pretty much any other online store, the major retailers, you can find for the same price a 128GB micro SD card, which is double the storage for about the same price, which, as these files are very big on this camera, it's definitely worth it to get the larger card. Another thing to note is once you get this X3 camera out of the box, you'll quickly realize that the lenses are pretty exposed and the rounded shape makes them vulnerable to scratching or damage. Not only when you're using the camera, but just by putting it down, they can get scratched up pretty easily. An additional accessory I do recommend you get are some lens covers, which are sold by Insta360. You need to line them up according to the instructions, with this little notch at the bottom facing downward. They stick on with adhesive. I wish this were some kind of screw or mount because taking these lens covers off is not and won't be easy. Now, once you have those lens covers on, in the settings of the camera, you should enable the stitching effects for lens guards so the software knows to remove the additional bulk of the covers out from your shots. All of the settings, by the way, are really easy to reach on this new 5.8cm or 2.29-inch front touch screen. You can change the screen brightness, set up wind reduction for the microphone, or swipe through various shooting modes, film completely with automatic settings, or manually adjust things like white balance. You can also get a small preview of your footage by swiping left. Personally, a few settings I would recommend tweaking are turning the sharpness down from high to medium, which seems to give the footage a slightly more natural look, and you can adjust between the standard and vivid modes to see which you prefer. Vivid gives you brighter and more vibrant colors, but turns up the contrast a bit, so it tends to make indoor shots a little darker than they would be otherwise. If you're going to shoot indoors often, I recommend switching to standard for a better overall look. The X3 is solid, and I like that they've put this rubber matte grip here around the edges, so it makes it easier to hold the camera. And the touchscreen is really intuitive and simple, but it's powerful, and all of those things make this camera much easier to use than it has been before. But the real magic of this camera is in this dual lens system right here. The way those lenses work is they record both sides at the same time, creating a sort of bubble around them. Each bubble is just enough to cover a little over a 180-degree field of vision. The camera software then stitches those two videos coming in from those two different lenses into one single video file, so you can choose what you want to show from that video file using Insta360's editing software. So what the camera software does is where those two camera bubbles overlap, it combines the images together so it appears to be one seamless image you can scroll around in. Using one of their extended selfie sticks, they have 70 and 120 centimeter versions and a massive 3-meter, nearly 10-foot version if you want to get practically drone shot-like footage from the X3. And the software smartly removes the stick from your shot, creating a sort of invisible selfie stick, which is what they call it, and it's not very noticeable, except for shadows and your hand posture might give it away. And there are two ways to edit the software that you get from the Insta360 camera. One is on your phone. So they have an app where you can edit directly on your phone. So you can take the footage and just load it up into here using Bluetooth and then make your edits and your clips here. I think personally, the mobile version is a lot easier for shorter clips, and the desktop version of the software is a lot easier to use if you're going to be making longer clips or multiple clips from the same video file. Editing footage through your phone is a little more intuitive, but on both sides, the mobile and the desktop, the concept is the same. You set keyframes or sections of video clips that you want to highlight. So you can choose to focus on an object in a particular part of the video, then switch over to yourself. The software also has tracking, which is really easy to use, so your subject always stays in frame. Keep in mind that the desktop version is going to take a little bit of time to get used to. There is a learning curve there, and you've got to understand how keyframes work, and lining those all up and making those all work isn't always the most intuitive, especially if you haven't worked with editing software before. And 360 footage has to be edited because you need to pick what you want to focus on throughout the entire video file. I find the mobile app to be easier because it uses more automated features that are a little bit more intuitive, at least as far as the user experience goes, but the desktop version gives you more screen real estate to work with. Plus, I find I end up exporting multiple versions of the same video, just using different angles, and that for me is easier to do on a larger screen that has more bells and whistles. Now, there are a couple of different modes, like there's me mode, which you can use, which uses the lenses and it focuses just on you. So you're using this more like you would a GoPro or any other regular camera. You can just kind of walk around and follow yourself. You can also switch it to just use the front lens or to just use the lens on the back. So switching through the lenses, I can just use the front lens, for example. So it's not recording anything from the back. Again, this is more like you would use a regular camera. And in case you were wondering what the built-in microphone sounds like, you're listening to it right now. Of course, you can also switch back to the back camera. So if I want to pause this video and then switch it over to the outer lens, the back camera, for example, hit record, and now I'm recording everything that is behind the camera. So it really doesn't matter because obviously you have the cameras on both sides, but you can do that if you want to. There's also bullet time, which has a retractable little accessory that you screw onto the bottom, but I can give you an idea of what that's like here. So if you just take this, set it into bullet time, and then just swing it around your head, you'll get an image that kind of looks like this. Probably though, most of you are going to want to use 360 mode. It's the main feature of the X3, but just be careful not to toggle through the options and accidentally get stuck on a single camera lens unless you specifically want to. That's a mistake I've made, and it's so disappointing when it happens because I think I'm shooting in 360 mode. I had all these ideas for great shots. I was planning them out, thinking I was getting all of this 360 footage, only to export the video files later and then realize I was shooting with single lens mode and I didn't capture all the stuff I wanted to capture. So that's a note. Just make sure that you are in 360 mode when you're shooting with this camera. And I know it sounds really obvious. Hey, make sure you're in 360 mode before you shoot 360 video. But I say that because I think most of you are going to be shooting in 360 or want to shoot in 360 90 to 95% of the time with this camera. It's why you get a 360 camera. So toggling off accidentally to outer lens mode or inner lens mode can really ruin the footage that you wanted to get. And it is easy to do it. Like, it's kind of easy to switch out of that mode and forget it and then have your shots ruined. So just make sure that it is in 360 mode. Otherwise, one other thing that I found that I had to get used to is that you don't point this camera at stuff. It's more thinking about positions. It's not that you have to actually point the lens at stuff because you're filming all around it. Like most of the time, the camera just hangs out. You move it, say, from in front of you to overhead, but you don't really point it at you. After a while, you start to think more about positions, like side or underneath. It's all about the angles with this camera, since you know most everything is going to be in the shot and can be edited and selected later. There are some limitations though with the X3, and kind of like I alluded to before, most of that has to do with indoor shooting. It doesn't really do well in lower light situations. It's a bit washed out on the X3, and compared to a GoPro Hero 9 Black, for example, the dynamic range, that contrast between lights and darks on the X3, isn't as sophisticated. Alright, so just to give you an idea, the difference between the GoPro Hero 9 Black and the X3 indoors, this will sort of give you an idea of what the footage looks like, what the lighting looks like indoors, and what the color looks like, and a little bit of the difference. In my opinion, it looks like the GoPro does a little bit better with this kind of lighting, does a little bit better, but it only has to focus on one angle, whereas with the 360 camera, obviously I can do a lot more. I can focus on different parts of the entire room around me. The X3 though is an outdoor camera and does its best work in bright, sunny conditions where the sensor really gets to shine and the colors pop. And another thing that isn't so obvious when you start shopping for the X3 is that you really need to accessorize this camera. Lens guards are a good idea, a selfie stick is a must, you might want a lens cap, maybe a mini tripod or a microphone adapter or a quick card reader. And all of those accessories come extra, which can easily push this $450 camera closer to $600. And that's not a complaint, it's just something to be aware of because the bundles that Insta360 offers for the X3 can be a little bit confusing. I would say generally it's better to buy the accessories separately because there are a few tricks you can use to save a little bit of money. Like for example, the selfie stick, you can usually get that for free, especially if you find an Insta360 sponsored video, which this one is not, but there are a few other creators online that have made sponsored videos about the Insta360. And almost always in their affiliate links, you get a free selfie stick. So when you get an Insta360, when you order the camera, you don't need the full bundle because you're going to get a selfie stick that's going to be thrown in free. I think lens guards are a good idea. And like I said, buy your micro SD card from another online store to, again, save money. Extra batteries, bullet time cords, dive cases. There are a lot of accessories to choose from. And it's a little bit like GoPro where you can just go accessory crazy and it's hard to figure out all the ones you need because there are just so many that can go with this camera. But even with a minimalist setup where you just have the camera and the selfie stick, for example, even with a minimalist setup like this, you can get a lot of unique and creative videos and photos and just have a lot of fun with this camera. I think the Insta360 X3 is going to replace a GoPro for many of you, especially if you don't mind doing a little bit of editing after the fact. That's my review of the Insta360 X3. I hope this video has been helpful for you, but if you have any questions, feel free to let me know down in the comments below. And while you're down there, hit the like and subscribe buttons. I'll have new videos for you every week, and I'll see you in the next video.